Welcome to Talking Bengals, a Bengals site made by the fans for the fans. Check out Talking Bengals on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube at Talking Bengals. Now, let's join the conversation. Hello and welcome to Talking Bengals, the first preseason edition. Should be a good one tonight. We're gonna get into a little bit of review about that Week 1 victory, if we can call it that. But we're joined by Nick tonight. How you doing, Nick?
Doing good, Casey. A little tired. How about yourself?
It has been a grind this week, just an absolute grind, and it's only Wednesday, 2 more days to go. But at least we get to talk some football, so that's always a positive note to bring up. So first off, the Bengals get a win in Week 1 of the preseason, but it's the preseason. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's the preseason. You're looking for a win, but you're also looking for players to come out and perform. We had backup defensive ends, showing pressure on the offense, pressure on the quarterback. I can't remember names. I'm terrible at names. But the two backups to the starters on defensive ends were showing good pressure. One actually even got a sack. So, you're looking at a bright outlook, especially if you have your backups, coming in and doing something to show any kind of positive light. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited for this year. I can't wait to see what's going on and see what this team has to bring.
I thought it was just fun, get a little bit of excitement going. The starters out there. We'll get into what I think about the defense here in a minute. But, aside from Andy Dalton's interception on the first drive, the offense was clicking on all cylinders. And, it looked pretty good. I wasn't that worried about it. And, I always love it when they get the backups in there because, these guys, this is their season for the most part, especially like, Jeff Driscoll, the Bengals' third-string quarterback. He may make the roster. He may not make the roster. We'll just have to wait and see if they want to keep 3 quarterbacks or 2, which they've done in previous seasons. But, he just looked great. He actually, ran in there, made 2 of the Buccaneers guys collide, just made them look stupid. And that was fun to watch. And, I really enjoyed watching the preseason game 1. And I think, Jeff Driscoll is a big part of that because typically, by the time a third-string quarterback gets in there, he can't even complete a pass. And Driscoll, I know, is against, a third-string defense, but he looked like an NFL quarterback. To watch, kept me from getting too bored. Usually I turn off the game, midway through the third or fourth quarter because it's so boring. You're like, good Lord, it's just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Everybody looks sloppy, but it actually looked pretty crisp for being mostly a third-string game. And like I said, the first-string offense, they look sharp when they were out there. And, there's just other stuff we're going to dive into from here. But I definitely have to say it was at least better than it could have been. But speaking of better than it could have been, let's talk about some of the biggest disappointments from this game. I'm going to lead this one off, and my biggest disappointment, hands down, was the defensive line. Pathetic. That first-string defensive line was awful. There was no pass rush. They just let the Bucs march down the field. They made Jameis Winston look like an MVP caliber quarterback, and that's hilarious. I don't care what anybody on ESPN says because they're like, oh, he's a great quarterback. He's decent. He's very decent, but he is not a great quarterback. He's not a top 5 quarterback in no way, shape, or form. And, the defensive line has got to perform this year. Our biggest weakness last year on defense, at least in my opinion, I think a lot of people would agree, though, was the pass rush. There was no pressure on the quarterback. If you leave an NFL caliber quarterback, and it doesn't matter top 5 or anybody, there's only, 32 teams, so you're one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the world. So the fact is you can't leave them a lot of time to throw the ball, or they're going to pick you apart. So Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, getting some of the young guys, Andrew Billings, Carl Lawson, some of those guys just need to start making some plays, need to start getting things done, or else this is going to be a long season because, I thought that secondary looked pretty decent. They couldn't cover anybody in the middle of the field all night, whether it was first string, second string, or third string. But, William Jackson III looked pretty good, could have some good potential. If Darqueze Dennard gets healthy and stays healthy, he might have some potential. But the cornerbacks can only guard people for so long. So the defensive line needs to tighten it up, needs to make plays. Nick, who's your biggest disappointment?
I think my biggest disappointment is just going to be the fact that, Jake Elliott's not getting all the reps as the place kicker. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be most definitely the place kicker that we have, and we have something set up later on in the show for him. But I mean, why even have the other place kicker out there? Is it Bullet Casey? I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, there's no reason to even have the other guy out there. We've invested so much in this place kicker, and he's already shown promise in the preseason, or shown promise in camp, and shown that he can actually kick a field goal and an extra point. So I mean, it's like, why do we even have another place kicker even there? But later on down the road, we'll talk about that a little more.
Well, I hate to just talk about nothing bad, but I always like to get the bad out of the way first when we get into the good. And speaking of the good, let's talk about some best performances from preseason game 1. And if anybody disagrees with me, they'd have to be crazy. Joe Mixon, just wow. Absolutely just wow. I don't even know the last time. I mean, AJ Green, I guess, was the last player, the person I watched him play. I was just like, wow. I mean, I don't even know a better word to describe him. He was making plays. He made people look stupid. I mean, he caught a little dump pass out of the backfield, had 2 Buccaneers guys going to take him down, jukes them both out, goes for like 10 yards, 12 yards. And that's just something that, I mean, the Bengals have been missing. And he's not a little agile back. I mean, he's not, Gio's a great little agility guy, but he's tiny, has no size. Mixon's a pretty big guy. And he's just making people look silly, and he's extremely fast. So, I mean, just the possibilities of what he can bring to the table. If I was Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard, I'd be saying, wow, I think both of our jobs may be lost to this one guy, because he can go for power, he can go for speed and agility, he can do it all, and he can catch passes. So do I think they're going to cut either Gio or Jeremy? No, their jobs are secure, because you need more than one running back in this day and age for the NFL to be a successful team. But Joe Mixon, keep your nose clean, stay out of trouble, and you're going to have a hell of an NFL career.
Casey, I'm going to have to agree with you, brother. I mean, best performance, I believe, is hands down Joe Mixon. I'm biting my tongue on this one, but I mean, as long as he stays out of jail, keeps his mouth shut, and just goes out and performs on Sundays or Thursdays or Mondays, whenever they want to play, as long as he goes out there and just plays and stays out of trouble, doesn't hit any more women, he's going to be all right. I mean, if he even keeps up the performance that he has shown in the preseason, and even in training camp, if he keeps it up, I mean, he may be looking at a very, very, very successful career. But, there is that but with him, and that's the, staying out of trouble. But I do think that as long as he can mature and, take some advice from some of the older guys and, make things right, I think he's going to be one of the best running backs, if not the best, that the Bengals have ever had. Quite frankly, he's athletic. Like Casey was saying, he's a big guy, especially for running back standards, and he can make people miss. He's quick. He's agile. I mean, what more can you ask for from a running back? He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the agility. I mean, hopefully we can compare him to Walter Payton here, later on down the road here in about a decade. But I mean, he's just talented.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about Mixon, and I think there are going to be great things to come from him. And, speaking of great things that are happening right now again, so we got a familiar face and a really big key part of the Bengals roster in the secondary come back to practice, and that's George Iloka. I mean, now, is it going to be a quick turnaround for him? Is he going to be right back in the preseason? I really hope not. I hope they're smart enough to keep him off the field and out of the action. But he is going to be very important. I mean, I think Fledglam's a great player, could be a really solid guy, but he's not quite as good as George Iloka. And there's a lot of youth going on in that secondary. So, George, if you can keep getting better and be there when we play Baltimore week 1, that would be great. And that's just our quick injury update right now for injuries that we're actually concerned about. And one other quick one is John Ross is back to full practices now. He's actually getting in full pads, doing everything everybody else is doing. He's not limited. So that's really good news too. But he's another one that I really hope they don't mess with a whole lot in the preseason, and they just save him for week 1 at Baltimore. Let's not get anybody hurt for absolutely no reason. So that's going to move us away from the injury report, and we're actually going to go into our preview for this coming week. So this week's going to be Bengals Chiefs Saturday night at Paul Brown Stadium. I'm not sure why they put both preseason home games back to back, but hey, whatever. That works for us. I always like the second preseason game. It's not quite as good as the third, where the starters go for at least a whole half. But I would or whole half or 3 quarters. But I expect the Bengals starters will be in there for at least the entire first quarter, and it'll be something more to watch. It gives us a little bit different feel. And the Chiefs were a good team, and they're going to probably be a good team again this year. So it gives them good competition. Should let the Bengals, measure themselves off of another AFC team. And hopefully it's just an exciting game. Nick, what are your thoughts and insights?
I mean, I think this week we're going to see a lot more from that defensive line, coming back from our disappointments from this first game. Just I don't know. I'm trying to sit here and predict something that's probably not going to happen. Kind of like a weatherman, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more from our starting D line. See a little bit more aggression. Maybe a little more pass rush. Maybe a little more penetration on the runs, and maybe stopping some guys in the backfield. But I think that we're going to see a lot more from our defensive backs, being able to see a lot more from a lot more coverage downfield, be able to see them stay with the receivers, see the safeties coming over and helping with double coverage. I think we're going to see a lot more from Joe Mixon, hopefully in this second game. Hopefully we'll see a lot more from him, just to see his athleticism and get a little bit more excitement for the regular season. Quite frankly, I want to see him start that first game. I love Jeremy Hill and Gio. I mean, they've been here for a few years now. We've learned to love them, but I mean, Joe Mixon's he's a complete athlete, and if we drafted him and we're going to put some faith in him, we might as well just put it all in him and see what he can do. See what he can do to help this team out. And like Casey, like what you were saying, man, he could be the whole package. Let's see it.
Well, I think especially in this week, and I mean, as before the big cuts come, it'll be interesting to see, which wide receivers stand out from the crowd. Because other than A.J. Green and John Ross, I guess you'd say Tyler Boyd has a lot of job security. But those 3, who else is going to make it? They brought back Brandon LaFell, and, maybe that was just to ensure that they had somebody in case the draft didn't go well. But think about it, you got Brandon LaFell, Cody Core, Josh Malone, and Alex Erickson all just kind of hanging out there. Everybody. So who's really going to be that guy? Who's going to be the person that, actually makes it happen and is going to make good things go for the wide receiver core? Because I don't even know if Boyd's job was 100% secure, because he dropped quite a few passes last year. Nick, what do you think?
I can't wait to see my boy Josh Malone. Good old Tennessee Volunteer. I don't know how I forgot about him. Seeing him come in, I hope I can see him catch a few more passes this week. He showed on the touchdown pass that he had caught down in the red zone, that little post that he ran. Just sticking with the routes and knowing that he's going to beat that coverage. Knowing what he's got to do and sticking with it. Their wide receiver coach was talking very highly of him from some of the articles I was reading, and quite frankly, I'm excited. I'm excited to see that there's other wide receivers other than AJ Green that can support the team. And I mean, having AJ Green there is one heck of a bonus. I mean, we all know, we all love AJ Green, so I don't need to go into that. But Josh Malone, I think he's going to be up and coming. He may be good enough to come in as a number 3. Hopefully, and this is me being hopeful, hopefully he'll be a number 2.
I think that's a long shot for him to be a number 3 and dang near impossible for him to be the number 2 this year. I don't see it. But I mean, that leads us down a little bit more of a conversation. So who's going to be the odd man out? Like, honestly, if you look at the roster, who's going to be the odd man out? And, I wouldn't want to say my initial thought is, well, Brandon LaFell, see you later. Bye, Felicia. He's gone. But aside from Brandon LaFell, the only experienced receiver you have is A.J. Green. So if you have A.J. Green and, Tyler Boyd second year, Cody Core second year, Alex Harrison second year, and then you have some rookies, it starts to think, we are really relying on people who have not been successful in the NFL to date. They've not shown that they really have what it takes to play in the NFL because they've never played an NFL game, or they've only had one season and have not really had a chance to establish himself as a reliable name. So as far as talent goes, I think Brandon LaFell is the obvious choice to let go because he's more toward the end of his career. There's a lot of potential and upside with these young guys, but they're unproven. I think, honestly, as much as it makes me sad to say because I like the guy, Alex Harrison's going to be on the outside looking in. Nick, what do you think?
I think there's an argument between Erickson and Boyd. Boyd obviously dropping a couple passes, but you have a lot of these guys that are draft picks like Josh Malone and John Ross. They put a lot of money in these guys, so obviously they're going to want to get them to play. So in my opinion, I think that they're going to keep them. It's just going with the Bengals. If they're going to spend money on somebody, you're going to keep them. So I think the big question is Erickson and Boyd. I think the bubble's on them, and just to see how they perform in the preseason to see where the cuts are going to be made. But I think you're right with Erickson. I think that he just hasn't shown what he needs to show in the preseason and in training camp, but time will tell.
I think you're having momentary amnesia there. I think you were saying Cody Core is the other guy with Alex Harrison, not Tyler Boyd, last year's second-round pick. So I'll say it's been a long week, and we'll think you meant Cody Core on that, not Tyler Boyd.
Sorry about that.
Well, that's going to move us into this week's Roasted or Boasted. And we only got a couple topics this week, but they should be pretty interesting. The first one is one that I've heard brought up many different ways. But, Nick, I'll present the question to you. Roasted or Boasted? 4 preseason games are too many.
I'm going to boast it just because of how late they start the preseason. If they start the preseason, I don't know, maybe a week earlier or 2 weeks earlier and start training camp, the beginning of July. I think that the preseason being 4 games would be all right. But when you're pushing football season that long, you're putting a lot of strain on these guys. You're talking about guys that are, in their mid to late 30s, guys like Brett Favre later in their career that, you don't want to play those type of guys in preseason. For God's sakes, then you're, if you go to the Super Bowl, God willing, you're putting a guy who's darn near retirement through like 20 games. That's just not good for your older guys, especially. But with these younger guys, 4 games is almost not enough to see what kind of talent you need and who you need to cut. You're only giving them 2 or 3 weeks for camp, and then preseason. So you're looking at maybe like 6 weeks to see who you got to cut and who you can't. That's hard decisions on, especially the coaches. So I don't know. I guess it's a boasted. I mean, I think it's definitely too many games, but I don't know. I think they just need more time practicing to see what kind of competition they can bring.
I mean, I'm really on the fence on this one. You know, from a player standpoint, you don't want to have that many games. You don't want people to get hurt or put more tread on the tires or just get mentally worn down. But from a coaching standpoint, like you said, 4 games really isn't enough. I mean, especially for these young guys. And I almost wish maybe the first 2 preseason games they'd modify it. And, it's just rookies or just second and third string guys in the first 2 games. Don't even bring the starters. Like, you don't even have to have them like nationally televised. You can almost have it like scrimmages on like a smaller field if you really wanted to, which they'd never do because it's all about money, 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 money. That's the reason that you'll never see 4 games go away is because the NFL will lose money. If they get rid of 4 preseason games, they're just going to add 2 more regular season games. They're not going to lose 2 opportunities to make money and the TV rights and everything else that goes along with it because unfortunately the sporting industry is all about money. That's all it is. I mean, I would say that I'm going to roast it that 4 games is too many. I just think they need to, if they really want to make this as beneficial as possible, they would change how the games are done. Like I said, have the first 2 weeks be, smaller, almost like scrimmage type events where you're really just looking at the young guys. Because, like I said, Andy Dalton's your quarterback. AJ Green's your starting wide receiver. A lot of these guys have their positions locked up. There's no point to see them for 4 games. Now, game 3, they can get into a dress rehearsal type game. Game 4, take a few more reps, get in there. But, I mean, the way the preseason is done right now, week 1, you see the starters for a series. Then they're done pretty much. Week 2, you see them for, a little bit longer. Week 3, you see them a little bit longer. Week 4, you see them for a series, if that, and then they're done. So, really, weeks 1 and week 4 are already kind of the way I'm talking about. But I don't think they do it the right. It's just, sell it in a different way, package it in a different way. Putting the guys out there for 1 series, in my opinion, is a waste of time. But that brings us to another interesting roaster boasted topic. One I know you're going to have a great opinion about, and I'm interested to hear it. But I have to make sure I word this exactly right, because if I don't do it right, you're going to make fun of me for missing the opportunity to just say it in a fun way. But not giving the kicking job to Jake Elliott would be nuts. Roasted or boasted?
That would be a boasted. I mean, to give the job to Jake Elliott is pretty much, I mean, I don't see the argument. In my opinion, I don't see the argument against giving him the job. I mean, Jake Elliott has proven himself through college. He's proven himself through training camp. Yeah, there's going to be some transition time, but I mean, he's gotten that out in training camp and in the first preseason game. I mean, you saw the type of power he has from distance in the preseason game by making the field goal. I can't remember how long it was, but I mean, he made it with ease. I mean, he didn't have any trouble with the distance. He didn't have any trouble with, the pressure coming at him. He just didn't have any trouble with it. He was focused. He got the job done, and that's what you need from your kicker. They have one job, to kick the ball through the uprights. And Jake Elliott is definitely focused enough to make those plays when they need to be made. And in my opinion, to not give Jake Elliott the job would be like kicking the Bengals in the balls, quite frankly. I mean, kicking the fans in the balls, to kind of put that in a little bit more reason there. I mean, you take a guy that can consistently make field goals, and if you don't give him the job, you're definitely kicking your fans in the balls. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. I mean, you have a guy who's already been in the NFL that has proven that he's inconsistent, or you got a guy who has proven consistency, through college and coming up, and a young guy that you can keep with your team and that you drafted fairly high as a kicker. I mean, apparently as a kicker, you don't draft somebody that high. Normally you pick them up on free agencies. But I mean, Jake Elliott, I mean, if you don't give him the job, you're crazy.
No, I agree. Boasted 100%. I mean, I'll be quick on this comparison because you hit a lot of it. But, the kick he made was effortless. It looked like a golfer hitting a ball, just effortless. And it just exploded off his foot. Great power, right where it needed to be. And then you look at Randy Bullock. Every kick, yes, he made his kicks, but they looked like they were just limping along and then falling through the uprights. And that's not what you want to see. I mean, that just does not inspire confidence. And that's how all of his kicks looked last year. Like, oh, he kicked it and okay, it made it in there, but looks like it just barely. And I mean, if he did that consistently and didn't miss kicks, and if you just barely make a 60-yard field goal, sure, awesome. But he's not going to have that kind of power. He doesn't have that potential. You know what you're going to get with him: inconsistency and not a whole lot of power behind the kick. It's just barely going to make it there, and it looks ugly as crap, and it just does not flow. Jake Elliott's. I mean, if they don't let him get the kicking job, if they don't award it to him, then they're stupid. There's no other way to describe it. Just absolutely stupid. And, I mean, even if Jake Elliott has a little bit of a rough year, which he better not, don't miss kicks. You've been endorsed by Talkin Bengals. Can't let us down. But we know Randy Bullock's going to miss kicks. We know he's going to have errors. We know he's going to have issues. And so why not take a chance on a guy who, has a lot of upside, has a lot of potential, led Memphis in, scoring for field goals, and why not? Just give him a chance. Well, that's going to roll us into our final thoughts. And with final thoughts this week, it's going to be more focused on the regular season to be more interesting then. But we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a preseason with this. And we're going to make our predictions and our final thoughts as well. Nick, what's your prediction this week and final thoughts?
I think the Bengals come out on top against the Chiefs in the preseason. Just quite simply, just because we have, fairly solid competition, not only with the starting, but also with, the second and the third string team that we're going to be putting out there. I think that, our quarterbacks, 1 through 3, I think you're making a very hard decision. I mean, you have Dalton, McCarron, and Driscoll. I mean, you have 3 solid quarterbacks. One just has more experience. Dalton has more experience than McCarron. McCarron has a little bit more experience than Driscoll. So, I mean, what you're looking at is 3 solid quarterbacks that give you 3 different looks. And quite honestly, I don't think that they can cut either, any one of them. But, I mean, what we're going to be looking for mostly in this next preseason game, like you were talking about with that defensive line, we want to see the defensive line put pressure on the quarterback. We want to see them get that pass rush. We want to see them get, a solid push on the run to block holes and try to make the opposing running back try to run sideways and get tackled around the line of scrimmage or behind. So I don't know. I think that our defense is going to come around just because the defense always has. Just going based off of history, the Bengals have always had at least a decent defense, if not a good one, in my opinion. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the Bengals coming up on top, this week. And I'll probably give them a touchdown. So we'll say plus 10. I was going to say a touchdown and a field goal. So we'll say at least plus 10 this week. But definitely excited for this upcoming Saturday. See them actually come out and play. The starters playing a full quarter at the very least, maybe even getting them into the second quarter. So, Casey, what are you thinking?
I'm just going to come out and say my prediction: 24-13, Bengals win. I think they're not going to let that home crowd down, and should be for an interesting game to watch. Like you said, there's a lot of things going on, and you touched on most of the topics. But one guy I hope at least gets an opportunity to do what he does, and that's Alex Erickson. He didn't even get a chance to return a kick except for that one punt. But as far as kickoffs, he didn't even get a chance to shine on what he was best at last year. So I hope he at least gets an opportunity to do it. And, fans, I know that preseason's not as fun and exciting, but get out there and watch it live if you can. Tickets are discounted, so you might as well go enjoy it while the weather's nice. You're not going to freeze your butt off. And, you'll see a bunch of young guys, and they're going to play hard. So that's going to do it for us this week on Talking Bengals. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, Buzzsprout. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Talking Bengals. Hooday.
Hooday.